Good evening. It's time for a new edition of the Daily Debate. I'm your host for tonight, Muhammad Abdurrahim. Within the framework of presidential directives to achieve comprehensive economic development and increase GDP, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi continues to task the newly formed government with improving the investment climate as a top priority, aiming to boost foreign direct investment flows and accelerate production. In this context, the creation of the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs position represents a strategic step to ensure effective coordination among state bodies, clear vision and disciplined implementation of economic plans. In this episode of the Daily Debate, we'll be talking about the economic vision for the newly formed government led by Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the creation of the new post of Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs, the shuffle or the reshuffle that happened in the economic group of the cabinet, and the President's directives and assignments to the government, setting as a top priority key areas such as production, as economic development, as the investment climate, among others that include food security, energy, of course national security, foreign policy and others, and also tasking the cabinet to have a plan and a scheme, each ministry to have a scheme and economic measurement and performance measurement indicators that are to be evaluated and re-evaluated time and again. And with us here in the studio is Dr. Ibrahim Hegazy, the Professor of Marketing at the American University here in Cairo. Dr. Hegazy, always a pleasure to have you with us.
It's always my pleasure to be with you, Mr. Muhammad. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hegazy. Allow us, please, Dr. Hegazy and the viewers, first to read the top story of this Thursday, as Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli held a press conference following the first meeting of the new formed cabinet. Madbouli stressed that President al-Sisi's assignment for the new government includes 4 axes. The Prime Minister added that the President directed the government to reduce the public debt and to enhance the education system and the citizens' health care. He also directed the economic group to improve the economy in a sustainable manner. He reiterated that the government prioritizes the media file in the upcoming period. Dr. Madbouli stated that as per President al-Sisi's directives, the government studies merging the second and third stages of the Decent Life Haya Karima initiative. Earlier on Thursday, the Prime Minister presided over the first meeting of the new cabinet at the government headquarters in the new capital. The meeting probed President al-Sisi's directives to achieve a number of targets in the foreign policy, national security, energy, production and food security domains, as well as the health, transport and education sector, the human capital investment sector as well. The Prime Minister affirmed that Egypt is a state of institutions, requiring the new ministers in the government to continue the work and achievements begun years ago. He stressed on working within a unified vision and shared goal which is serving the citizen. Earlier, the Prime Minister honored the former ministers, presenting them with commemorative shields in recognition of their outstanding contributions during their tenure. He expressed his sincere gratitude for their dedicated services, each within their area of responsibility, wishing them continued success in their future careers. All right. We're back here in the studio with Dr. Ibrahim Hegazy, Professor of Marketing at the AUC. Dr. Hegazy, the viewers, first the report about our main topic for tonight. When we come back, we'll start our discussion. Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Please stay with us.
Within the framework of the presidential directives to achieve comprehensive economic development and increase GDP, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi continues to task the government with improving the investment climate as a top priority, aiming to boost the foreign direct investment flows and accelerate production. In this context, the creation of the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs position represents a strategic step to ensure effective coordination among state bodies, clear vision and disciplined implementation of economic plans. It also establishes a new institutional mechanism designed to achieve harmony within the government's economic team and develop the crisis evaluation and follow-up mechanisms, ensuring the implementation of the economic policies according to clear criteria and specific objectives. In this context, Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade Mohammed Farid held his first meeting with the ministry's leadership and affiliated authorities immediately after being sworn in before President el-Sisi. The meeting discussed the features of upcoming phase and urgent work priorities in line with the state's vision to support the national economy and raise investment and employment rates. The minister also emphasized the importance of building a genuine partnership with investors based on trust and transparency, affirming that both national and foreign investors are essential parts in achieving development and that the cooperation between the ministry and the business community constitutes a cornerstone for enhancing the competitiveness of the Egyptian economy. He stressed also that breaking the bureaucratic deadlock hindering production must shift to clear and swift executive procedures that facilitate investors' work and accelerate the pace of development. And positive economic indicators reflect a notable improvement in Egypt's financial investment performance. The current economic policies have demonstrated growing influence on both the national economy and the financial markets alongside an increased capacity to attract investments. Government debt metrics are being steadily enhanced to provide a greater fiscal space for stimulating growth and expanding social expenditure. And for the economic growth accelerated to 5% in the first quarter of the current fiscal year, propelled by rising production and export volumes, as well as the robust recovery in tourism, information technology and manufacturing sectors. During the same period, the private investment surged by 40%, driven largely by youth-led entrepreneurship in IT and software development, alongside the marked increase in both goods and services exports. And the risk perception has notably decreased, supported by strengthening investor confidence and solid performance in international bonds markets, contributing to a decline in the international bond yields to 4%. This gain as tax revenues recorded a 32% increase without introduction of new levies, while the external debt ratio of the budgetary entities fell by 12% over 2 years, underscoring continuity in the adopted fiscal strategy. The integrated government moves, backed by direct presidential support, reflect a clear approach to managing the economic file with institutional efficiency. Positive figures and indicators attest to effectiveness of implemented policies and Egyptian economy's capacity to achieve further stability and growth within a genuine partnership with the private sector in both local and foreign investors.
All right, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're still with Dr. Ibrahim Hegazy, the Professor of Marketing at the AUC, and still talking about the Egyptian economy and the vision. Now, Dr. Hegazy, we have a new cabinet and led by Dr. Madbouli again, but we have a new post, that of the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs. First of all, the significance of the creation of that new post, Dr. Hegazy, in your view.
Actually, there are two things that I would like to stress here. That, of course, it's a new post that is geared toward economic improvements. I think more not at the macro level, because obviously what we're going to talk about in terms of achievements of Egypt, in terms of the presidential vision, they're all at the macro level, and that sounds greatly with the international community, economic communities, and foreign direct investment. But I think the purpose of assigning Dr. Isa, actually, he was actually during my term as member of the parliament, he was actually the head of the economic committee at that time. So he's actually very familiar with the
from 2015 to 2020.
From 2015 to 2020, the first after the revolution.
Yes.
So he is very familiar with the local micro-economical situation. And I think this was the right choice for somebody who's very caliber, very experienced, and also very academic. So he has the mix of being into governmental issues and into the parliament, and at the same time being a professor who's renowned as one of the best economic professors. So I think the name himself, the name number one, added to the post, it gives a lot of significance, especially that he's not young, but I think maturity here is very important. So that means there is a shift in terms of listening to the public, listening to the voice of the public, that yes, we are very proud of what happened at the macro level, but at the same time we need to see the impact at the micro level. I think that's a sort of an added value to the government, the new government headed by Dr. Madbouli.
A very important point that you mentioned, Dr. Hegazy. Allow me to get back to it later. But as far as the President's assignments are concerned, now His Excellency tasked the new government with targets in key areas and across a number of sectors. They included national security, they include foreign policy, also economic development, energy, production, human capital investment, and others. Would you care, Dr. Hegazy, to shed light on these areas, and again, how this lies within the vision of development, sustainable development in Egypt at large?
Okay. First of all, let me give an idea of what do we stand today economically in Egypt, because these numbers here, they reflect why the President is focusing more on the three pillars that I'm going to highlight in details a little bit. First of all, our GDP growth percentage rate, it's up from 3.5 to 5.3 in the first quarter of the fiscal year of 25-26, and that's almost double jump. But at the same time, considering what's happening around Egypt in terms of political unrest and economic unrest as well, gives an idea that the economy is moving in the right direction. Okay, maybe it's not yet sound at the micro level, but at least that's a starting point. The GDP growth rate is increasing. The private investment share, and I think this was one of the requirements of the IMF in their economic reforms with Egypt, that we have to loosen up a little bit the public and the governmental investments. So when you see the numbers speaking that in the first quarter of the fiscal year 24-25, the private sector investment in the Egyptian economy was almost 45%. As of the first quarter of this year, of this fiscal year, we are 66%. So that's again...
That's a 50% rise, almost.
In 1 year, in 1 year. And thirdly now, the Suez Canal. Because of the unrest that took place in the Red Sea, it was negative. But now we can see that there is a pickup of 8.6% increase in our returns from the Suez Canal, the growth here. These numbers really can reflect on the vision, and the presidential vision is not today, it's been there. So he always stressed, the President, on our economic sovereignty, that we have to be independent and we should not rely on external factors, whether we're talking about imports of our basic products or our oil. So he stressed three things in his vision, and I'm going to talk about the achievements on these three pillars.
Again, we're talking macro again, as you said.
Because the next step is why we have this change in the government.
Right.
So the food security, and he stressed that we should be independent. Our achievements as of late 2025, we have a land expansion, and we expanded our agricultural land from 4.5 million faddans to 12 million faddans by the end of 25.
Right, but that's over the course of 10 years.
But at least where do we stand today? So people have to know why our figures are that. Why
we're 12 million now?
Yes, by the end of 2026, the fiscal year. And then we have
and does that meet the set target, or does it exceed it? Or
no, this is the expected at the end.
Okay.
And that's not the Egyptian forecast, but it's the World Bank forecast.
Okay.
Because the World Bank has an impact, as I will speak also in a minute.
Yes.
And then we have the wheat storage. And as you know, wheat is very important commodity, basic commodity here. So we have expanded the wheat commodity storage
production here at home
from 5.5 million tons for the fiscal year 2025, and that's by itself a good 6 months coverage here, as a we call it safety window. And then agricultural exports. And these are figures that I'm really astonished myself when I hear that the agricultural exports they hit a record of 9.5 million tons.
Million?
Tons.
Okay.
They are valued at 11.5 billion US dollars. That's only in
11.5 billion US dollars.
Yes.
The
And
agricultural exports.
Agricultural export. And this is the figure now. We are number one globally in terms of
Oranges.
citrus
Yeah,
exports.
yeah.
And that's the 2 millions. And then we are number one globally in terms of frozen strawberries.
Right.
I mean, this is in the agriculture.
Right.
And the pillar here is
And that's
food
almost
security.
like, that is what? That is nearly 25% of total exports?
Yeah.
Where do total exports stand? Almost. I mean, 40 plus billion,
The gap has
minus?
decreased from 50 to 30 billion US dollars. The gap,
Okay.
because of the non-oil exports.
Okay.
And I will stress more.
The gap, you mean the deficit
the
between,
deficit between
exports
export
and
import,
imports?
yes.
Right.
And that's the main reason is that we have increased on the non-oil exports, and the basic one, in addition to ICT and other things as well,
Yes.
as service. But there is another thing also under the food security, which is the contracting of farmer. You know, we need wheat cultivation in Egypt, not just importing it. So that's why the contractual agreement with farmers have increased from up to 1.8 million firdans.
So we're seeing a shift here, Dr. Hegazy.
Yes.
A shift in policy here. Instead of relying solely or mainly on importing wheat,
Yeah.
now we're producing it more at home.
Exactly, yeah. So that by itself reduce the import bill of wheat.
Right.
You see, that's
Right.
again.
And the total import bill, because
exactly.
wheat represents a big portion.
But we
of
are
it.
still talking under the pillar of food security.
Right.
And to have our economic sovereignty,
Yes.
independence from others.
Yes.
That's number one. The second is the manufacturing for export. And that's why we hear a lot about the Suez Canal economic zone. But as a matter of fact, the Suez Canal has already had a lot of agreements, and I will talk about it later. But you have an export jump, non-oil exports, by 17% in 2025, reaching almost 48.6 billion US dollars as exports. And that's non-oil exports. And then on the performance of the Suez Canal zone, the Suez Canal zone reported a 55% year-on-year revenue increase by 6.25 billion US dollars. Again, these are numbers that reflect the power of the manufacturing geared toward export. And the Suez Canal zone, because it's on the border of the Suez Canal, so it is geared toward exporting and as a transit from the Far East to Europe and vice versa. And then we have import substitution. We have 1 billion US dollar chemical complex in the Suez Canal zone. And then we have 291 million tire factory is also on the Suez Canal zone. Textile hub, we have in West Kantara, we have aimed to export 95% of that output. That's the second pillar. First one, as I said, is the food security, and the second one is manufacturing geared toward export, and is predominantly on the Suez Canal zone.
Right.
The third is
and the key element here is import substitution.
Exactly. Import substitution and focusing on non-oil export toward the global.
Yes.
And then the third pillar is reducing the import bill and reducing the trade deficit. And here we have contracted, obviously from this, in import substitution, export expansion, we have contracted the deficit, and so the non-oil trade deficit shrank by 9%. In 2025, ending to, as I said, almost 35 billion US dollars. That's the current one. And it was more than this, about 40 billion US dollars.
Right.
That's a good achievement in 1 year again. And then what is surprising, and I think we may know about it, but they don't talk about it a lot, is that we had a surge of gold export. And so to compensate for what was going on with the Suez Canal revenue, our exports in 2025 was 7.6 billion US dollars. So not only a reserve, but again.
So I mean, this might be an interesting. I don't know if it's a difficult question, but it's definitely an interesting one. The surge that happened in the price of gold in 25 and in early 26.
Yeah.
Does it benefit the Egyptian economy, or does it hurt the Egyptian economy?
It benefits. I don't know exactly whether we have how much of our gold is with the central bank as the reserve. So the value will definitely increase as we keep it here. But what I was referring to is the gold surge in export, because we have so many mining contracts here in Egypt and extraction.
There's an added value here.
There is an added value for our exports. And again, this is away from oil and gas and natural gas. So these are the vision of our president, and I think that's why we have two things that we have to be aware of, which is the rating of Standard & Poor's and Fitch. That they have improved our rating due to actually our reserve, central bank reserve is up to $52 billion US. And I think if you go back to 2014, it was below the margin of $30 billion US.
And here, the credit must go first, if I can say, to the Egyptian expats, Dr. Hegazy. I mean, look at what the Egyptian expats are doing. Look at the remittances from abroad. Look at how they've jumped. It's almost $40 billion per year. That's more than the Suez Canal and the touristic revenues combined.
Yes, absolutely.
Even if the Suez Canal is doing its best and at normal rates, and even if the tourism revenues achieve their targets, the Egyptian expats are more than these two combined.
You are absolutely right, and that's why you see their voice now is very strong regarding the law of mobiles and so forth that's happening now.
Yeah.
So you're right.
So this is an economic tool for Egypt. I mean, it's becoming sort of a backbone for the Egyptian economy.
It is, because it shows the power of Egypt's ability not to go into default. And when you have 52 billion, and that's a reserve that is really good enough, because we have a lot of obligations as in the year 2020, the fiscal year 2025-26, and we expect to pay off about $28 billion in that year. Either it is as interest or as part of the equity itself.
Right.
Of the principal, I'm sorry.
Now the president has talked about reducing the debt. He's talked about reducing the public debt as well, and the local debt, not just the external debt. And he's asked for ways and out-of-the-box thinking to solve this problem. I mean, you as an expert in this field, I mean, how can we have a diversified economy? We have a very big market. I mean, but at the same time, the debt is very high. I mean, the external debt and the local debt. We want to get it down. I mean, so the president and the government are trying to get it down. So where do we go? I mean, how do we do it?
First of all, we have to be aware that there is no single country that have zero debt. Even the U.S. has the largest ever debt on earth. But it's all about the strength of the economy. It's all about the GNP. It's all about the production that you have. It's all about your exports. So I'm not really concerned about whether our debt decrease or not. But what my concern is our ability to pay and not to default at any period in time. And I think this is what we're trying to do, to improve the power of the private sector. And obviously I would like also to shed some lights on this particular one.
Yes.
Because production reflects on GDP, and GDP reflects on employment. And so this cycle here, we call it the supply-based, not demand-based economy. So the more you grow, the more ability you will have, the hard currency to pay off your debts. So even if you have a large debt, but you have the power to pay it off either by export or by worker remittances from abroad or by your reserve.
Production added value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me actually shed light on three things. The non-oil manufacturing by the private sector. Now, we have automotive, they grew by 50%. Assembly, electric cars from China and other ones. And we have chemical and pharmaceutical products, factories. They have grew by 44%. And then we have high-tech, which is the borrowing of technology. And I think this is one part that Egypt have raised for anybody who wants to invest as foreign direct investment in the Suez Canal economic zone. That you must bring your technology know-how to us as Egyptians. And so there is also this part here. And the last but not the least is the issue of increase in our export, and it did increase by August 2025 by almost 34%. This is one area. So that itself in our growth is 14% as a sector in our production, in our economy, is good enough as a starting point. The second one is the ICT.
Right.
The ICT, which is, we are in the 5G, so that's an infrastructure that facilitates the foreign direct investments, you know, especially when you are connected. And the second one is we are one of the greatest hub on earth in terms of outsourcing companies. And you know, the number of outsourcing companies in Egypt as of the fiscal year, end of fiscal year 24-25 is it have jumped by 180%, reaching almost 186 companies by the end of 2025.
That's speaking of ICT and the achievement there.
Yeah.
I mean, you have tourism, you have ICT, you have manufacturing. Good achievements, as you mentioned, Dr. Hegazy, good numbers across the board in these three sectors. Which of these sectors, in your view, Dr. Hegazy, has the highest sustainable growth potential between tourism, ICT, and manufacturing? And if there is another one...
Yeah, let me rank them, because actually you cannot deny that any one of them...
All of them are very important.
But if I put a ranking, and we can look at the global Fortune 500, the top 10 are almost all of them service-driven companies. So they are not production and manufacturing. So they are not labor-intensive, they are more capital-intensive. And I think that's why the ICT, and bear in mind that the call centers globally, Microsoft and the likes, are here in Egypt, because our accent when we speak either French or English or German, you cannot detect that this is unlike other countries where the accent is very clear that is from that country. And I think that's why the jump in the outsourcing here is very large. So this is, for me, is number one. And I think also the president have spoke about the AI, the use of AI, the ICT and the academy. And I think there is also sort of agreement with certain European universities to improve on our know-how in terms of AI.
The Ministry of Information and Technology is doing a lot.
So this is, for me, is number one, because that's the future. The next, of course, is tourism, because you have almost 30% of the global historical and cultural, monuments and statues here.
And the opening, I guess, of GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum, must add a lot.
Yeah, we had record arrivals by end of 2025, which is 19 million tourists visiting Egypt for the sake of part of it, of course,
for GEM.
For GEM, yeah.
Right. So, Dr. Hegazy, you said that at the beginning here that of our interview, that the appointment of Dr. Hassan Isa, Dr. Isa, means, in your view, that the government will be listening even more to the voice of the public, and that this will have a positive effect at the micro level.
Yes.
Could you expand on that point, please?
First of all, I think the numbers speak, not to us as Egyptians. Unfortunately, and I tell you why, because we don't see it on the street. But those who come from abroad, and usually it's better to look at it from outside than being inside. So when I look from the statistics and the reports coming from outside, they see Egypt as a hub for the future, especially when you talk about its geographic locations, and the 120 million is not a liability,
huge market.
It's an asset for us. And that's why ICT is one of the pillars of our future. Okay, so the infrastructure has been done, and we have received even awards as Cairo, as one of the best cities.
Yes.
We talked about it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And why? Because of the infrastructure, bridges, highways, the internet, superhighway, 5G, and many things. Okay, and then second, you have started to open up the economy. Number one, by reducing the private sector and the government investments and relying more on the
by
private
reducing
sector.
the public sector.
Yeah, by reducing the public investments and relying on the private sector.
Right.
So that gives more confidence from foreign direct investment to pour in. We did not actually focus only on tourism and on entertainment, which is actually basically from Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE. But you focus more on what is the future, the green, the renewable energy, the petrochemicals, all right, the service in the ICT service industry. And that's why companies started to sign agreements. They are not yet starting for employment. So we expect, that's why I say, from what we see in the last couple of years up to the end of the fiscal year 2020, 24, 25, we saw that Egypt built the appropriate infrastructure, and Egypt have facilitated the golden license, الرخصة الذهبية, as we say in Arabic.
Right.
That also gives tax havens, VAT eliminations for foreign direct investment. Now, having all of this and having the certificates from IMF, from World Bank, from Fitch, from Standard & Poor, that your economy is in the right direction, plus GDP growth of 3.8%, from 3.8 to 5.3, that a record, which is not actually have been achieved before. So it's time now to look at employment. It's time now to look at the economy in terms of the income and the standard of living of Egyptians. I expect
inflation is coming down.
Inflation it's one of the improvement, but inflation, it could go up and down depending on what's happening around you globally. So part of the inflation going down is because the import bill is going down due to the dollar, and it's strengthening a little bit of our Egyptian pound. However, I think with all of these projects and with all of these levels of not relying on construction only, because construction project as employment are temporary once the project is done, but you're talking about manufacturing, you're talking about plants, you're talking about more sustainable.
You want even more diversification.
Exactly. So I think this is, from my perspective, the choice of Dr. Isa as Deputy Prime Minister for Economy, I think this is a way of saying that the next statement of the government is to focus more on the micro level.
Dr. Hegazy, in your opinion, what are the most urgent investment opportunities that Egypt is currently marketing or can market to foreign investors? And when we keep talking about foreign investors, we shouldn't also forget the local investors and the private sector here in Egypt. Again, the balance between and the incentives that should be given to both, also the local investors, not just the foreign investors, but the most urgent opportunities, or the important opportunities in your view that Egypt offers at the moment.
I'm going to talk about facts. Maybe my views are minor regarding to the facts that we see it now on the ground. So allow me to highlight a couple of important projects have been signed and into actions in this fiscal year 25-26.
Yes.
We have a major success. We have the first export to the West. What is it? It is the green hydrogen project in Ain Sokhna. And it's a consortium partnership between Norway, Scatec, the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, and the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, and Orascom Construction, and there is another Dutch company called Fertiglobe. The agreement is a prosecute for 20-year agreement to supply green ammonia to Germany, following victory in the first ever tender with Egypt. That's the first one. And the second one is that we have a $6 billion petrochemical complex. It is also in Ain Sokhna. And then we have a Singapore Destiny Energy. It's a $210 million investment targeting green ammonia production to help Egypt meet the EU standards of strict carbon border adjustment mechanism requirements, which is the CBAM. That's a Singaporean investment in the Suez Canal for $210 million. And then you have Japanese partnership. It's an agreement with Mitsu and Itoshi, which finalized in late 2025, to develop green ship bunkering facilities in the Suez Canal zone, also at the Ain Sokhna and East Port Said ports. And then you have China. You have another investment from China, a project focused on, again, green ammonia. Now, what are the incentive giving for FDI? Number one, tax credits, between 35 and 55 tax credit. Second is the VAT, the value-added tax exemptions. And thirdly, it's the license, the golden license, which is in one place, one shop agreements, and all should be done as targeted by government within 7 days. I mean, this is what I can tell you about in terms of what do we have and not necessarily what do I vision. And this is what you're going to see the employment start, as the government have mentioned, by during this fiscal year. So we expect a lot of employment increase by the end of 2026.
Finally, Dr. Hegazy, can we say that the Egyptian economy has shown resilience in front of all of the turmoil in the region and the economic challenges that the entire world has seen? Can we say that we've had by nature the Egyptian market is resilient, and that we should, when things improve around us, move ahead and once and for good?
I think this is what the international, that's what the international institution talk about Egypt, that it has a resilience and it has overcame the instability that took place from the Russian war, from Gaza and invasions. I think we are resilient,
from COVID,
and the reason for resilience is actually should be attributed to a great extent to the Egyptian public. Why? Because they have sustained all the pains and agony that took place when we started our economic reform.
And the President has thanked the public more than always thanks the public for their
And I thank both of them. I thank the President for his leadership, and I thank the public also, because I think they have suffered a lot, and it's time now for them to see the better Egypt that others see it.
And we thank you, Dr. Ibrahim Hegazy, the Professor of Marketing at the AUC. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure also.
And thank you for watching us.
And Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Blessed Ramadan, everybody. Of course, next week, either Wednesday or Thursday. Please stay with Nile TV. Goodbye.